Like to add that committee member Palmer and committee member Turgeon are absent. Staff members present are planning manager Levi Hill, associate planner Matthew Buggart, myself, recording secretary Erica Barrera, and recording secretary Spencer Argenbright.
Okay, we'd like to open the consent agenda. Is there any member of the public or commissioner committee members that want to discuss anything that's on today's consent agenda?
You can go ahead and remind the public how to participate via Zoom if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank you.
Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via ZoomGov, a secure service that connects with you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with a 10-second delay and Comcast channel 25 up to a 90-second delay. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. Well, to join Zoom, no, apologies. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. For ARC, to join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864 toll free, then enter the webinar ID, which for ARC is 161-914-9563. If prompted for a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions for using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name typed into Zoom.
Thank you, Spencer. So I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Somebody's got to do it, the motion, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention because you weren't here. Okay, Ed abstains because he wasn't here at that meeting. So that is approved. And we'd like to open the floor up to any public comments for items that are not on today's agenda. And that includes online comments, if there are any. Anybody online or hands
There are
raised?
2 attendees online, but there are no hands raised.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to today's that's item number 3. Consider 675 Spencer Street for preliminary and final architectural review flat of a first and second story addition. And Matthew has a report.
I do. I will share my screen. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Buggart, and I'm an associate planner with the City of Monterey's Planning Division. And today we're here to talk about 675 Spencer Street for a first and second story addition. The recommendation from city staff is that the ARC adopt a resolution approving the architectural review permit and conditions of approval. The subject property is in the northwestern side of the city in the New Monterey neighborhood, in a residential area. The property itself has a primary residence here, and there is a garage in the back here, and there is a rather large tree at the rear of the property, and a driveway heading up here to a larger pavered hardscape surface. Taking a look at the site plan, this is the size of the garage that's in the back, and there's kind of a U shape to the structure at present. The garage in the back would not be affected, but the primary residence would. There would be an addition on this back side where the Carmel stone patio and rear steps are. So they would demo those Carmel stone patios and demo the paver stone driveway for a total of approximately 250 square feet. Looking from the street, the northern elevation, this is existing on the left and proposed on the right. It would have a semi-similar pitch roof to it, and the second story is set in an additional 2 feet in compliance with city code. From the western elevation, basically looking from the driveway side, it slopes up here on the driveway, and there would be a turret feature at the rear of the structure and a small balcony up here as well for looking out. This is the eastern elevation, so from the neighbor to the left. The proposed addition would match the stucco here and to the existing residence. And at the rear of the structure, there would be this turret that extends up. Finishes on this would include stacked stone here, whereas the rest of it would have stucco to match the residence. I'll also note one other spot, I'm sorry, back on the western elevation, down here, this would receive stone cladding to generally match the turret at the rear of the structure. Findings necessary for approval are that the proposed siding, form, mass, and architectural style must be appropriate. And as proposed, the development meets all development standards and siding and massing, and the style is generally compatible with the existing residence. And there's other stacked stone cladding on the exterior of residential homes in this neighborhood. Views, privacy, and living environment should not be impaired. No comments were received on this residence. Views, privacy, living environment were not significantly affected. And it's not necessarily that it's not impaired, not significantly impaired, not unreasonably impaired. Story poles were installed on site. And looking from the front of the structure, there's a couple photos we have here. It would extend above the primary residence like so. And there are homes to the left that still have their views to the right with their views, and then the trees in the back generally shield from the proposed development. And this is looking from the other side. The third finding is that the project must be found consistent with city plans and design guidelines. It is generally consistent with the general plan and development standards for a residential site, and that the exterior finish, colors, materials, and exterior features are appropriate. As Semi mentioned on a previous slide, the stacked stone finish and new turret structure were generally found to be appropriate for a residential home. Conditions of approval on the project. There are no special conditions that staff is recommending for this project. It would comply with the required standard conditions of approval for the site. And with that, staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving the architectural review permit and standard conditions of approval. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. I believe the applicant is also available online.
Thank you, Matthew. Before we go into the applicant, are there any committee questions? Do we have a view, it's not in the packet, but a view of the proposed front? Like the full, it looks, for some reason, it seems like they're cut in. Like the east and the west are full. But like is the turret facing the rear of the property?
It is facing
okay.
the rear and not the street.
It just seems like it's cut off, but maybe I'm just not seeing it right. Yeah. Well, it's like that one there, just, it looks like is that the whole building or is it just cut in? Oh, that's the whole thing. Okay, never mind. All right. Any other questions for Matthew? Okay, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
The applicant is online, and I will go ahead and allow Eric Wincoop to speak.
Hello, thank you for having us today. basically, we're just trying to do an uncontroversial addition for a growing family project. And the house is especially paid attention to context, and the house is kind of sandwiched between two large apartment complexes. So I think it's appropriate in size and scale. We try to, again, make it so it should be a very simple transition for the neighborhood, nothing too dramatic, nothing too out of the ordinary. And we also did notice that the heritage oaks in the backyard would prevent most any obliteration of views from above. So we wanted to be considerate of all these things going into that project. So with that being said, we would appreciate your support.
Thank you. All right, are there any other public comments on this? Any with their hand raised? Anybody in the audience that wants to speak on this particular project?
There are no
Other-
members online with their hands raised.
Thank you. We're going to close public comments and we're going to open it up for the committee. Any comments amongst you guys about this project? Did anybody have a chance to go out and see the story poles? Okay, no comments from you, Justin? That seems, let me turn your mic on.
Yeah, it's nice when you do a 3D model or the elevations to actually depict the materials that are going on the building. There's this sort of strange turret thing in the back that apparently is clad in stone. But again, that doesn't show up. There's a stone base to the building, but that doesn't show up on the elevations. So I think it's important to have the elevations depict the materials that are going on the building. Makes them much easier to read rather than have to sort of have it verbally explained to us. I think the addition is, it's a box on top of a box. It's a little ungainly, but it's compliant. I guess I would just make that comment about the drawings that they lack detail.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we would normally maybe have samples of materials or paint swatches or roofing material, stuff like that.
I'm going further down into the plans themselves,
it.
but
He
double
did
check
it.
in there.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I don't think, did we see that?
We didn't see it, but again, it's not like,
Okay.
you look at the drawings and there's no
Got it.
materials depicted on the
Right.
drawings. They're just sort of some 3D model or something like that.
Okay. I looked down there and I didn't see that.
I almost said that too, but I'm
All right.
not too worried about it at this time, but yeah, I agree.
All right. In that case, if there's no other comments, I would entertain a motion to approve this project.
Okay, I move that we approve the architectural review permit ARP #23 0170 for preliminary and final architectural approval of the first and second story addition at 675 Spencer Street.
Second.
All right, let's take a vote. Any other comments before we vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No, you're opposed? Okay, so Justin says no, the rest of us are yes, so that would mean that the motion carries.
The motion
And
carries and it's appealable.
appealable within 10 days
days.
to the planning commission.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. Congratulations, who was online there. We're going to move on to item number 4, consider 639 Belden Street. And that's you again, Matthew. Thank you.
We'll share my screen. Uh, 639 Belden Street. We are here for an architectural review permit for a second story accessory dwelling unit or ADU. The recommendation from city staff is that the ARC adopt the resolution to approve the architectural review permit for a second story accessory dwelling unit. The reason that the accessory dwelling unit is before you today. I'll just say ADU from here on. Usually ADUs are only ministerial and they do not go through architectural review. However, in this case, there is a portion of our code where there are height limitations for ADUs, and if the ADU exceeds that height limit, then it will come to ARC. In this case, it is a detached ADU and it exceeds the maximum permitted height for ministerial review. Technically, it's 18 feet and then up to 20 feet for matching the roof pitch of the ADU to a primary dwelling. So in this case, the proposed ADU is 22 feet and 6 inches in height, and that is partially due to the roof pitch being matching the primary residence roof pitch. And so the applicant may apply for an exception to the height limit through the discretionary architectural review process, and the structure becomes subject to ARC if they comply with the following 5 items. And I won't go through each of these one by one, but it is fully compliant with the 5 things that they are supposed to be to necessitate ARC review. The subject property is about 1 block away from the previous one. It is in the northwest corner of the city, generally surrounded to the west, south, and east. It has residential development, and then across the street is a local school. The site itself has the primary structure at the front, and there's a garage across the rear of the structure. The footing of the garage is 5 feet from the rear and side property lines in compliance with city code. ADUs may be with as close as 4 feet to a property line. And so the ADU would be placed on top of that rear structure. As proposed, it has pretty much the same footprint as it. However, it will have a balcony extending to the front. Within the ADU, it would be a 2-bedroom ADU. The bedrooms would be along the rear of the structure, and there are opaque clerestory windows proposed for within each of those, and there is a glass window for the bathroom as well. Existing versus proposed. This is from the front elevation. Again, this is behind the house, so it's kind of hard to see from the street. We'll see some photos later on. From the front, there are existing staircase, concrete over here, and there would be a new staircase going up to the ADU on the eastern side of the structure. From the western elevation, there would be a window for the bedroom, and otherwise you can kind of see the balcony in the distance there. From the other side of the structure, it would be built directly on top of the existing garage, entrance door, bedroom door, and balcony. And the rear of the structure, currently it extends a few feet above the retaining wall at the rear of the structure, and it would go up with the clerestory windows for the bathrooms or for the bathroom and the 2 bedrooms. Findings required for approval are that the proposed siding form, mass, and architectural style must be found to be appropriate. It is entirely consistent with the development standards other than the height limitation. The matching roof pitch requires that height exceedance above 20 feet to 22 feet 6 inches. Roof pitches that would not match the primary dwelling would require approval through ARC. Views, privacy, living environment must not be found to be substantially or unreasonably impaired. There have been 3 comments received by the public, and from those comments, the views and privacy were identified as being potentially affected. Story poles were installed on site. This is from the front of the structure. You can see the story poles in the back. Since it is the new Monterey area, there is a slope here. So it does raise a little bit above, it raises above the primary structure at the higher elevation at the rear. This is from the other side into the backyard area. You can see the roof of the garage here and then the story poles going up. The public comments that were received were from this property to the rear here. There are 3 units that face out from these balconies. One down here, a second one down here, and then a third one from the top. Based on public comments, there were photos provided. And this is from the top balcony regarding the view, and from the top balcony, there are no views or privacy considered to be impacted. From the lower floors, and it's similar from both this one and the other one. It's obstructed by the roof here, and the eave can be seen along here with the story poles. So obstructed to an extent. Findings required for approval is that the project must be found consistent with city plans and design guidelines. It was found to be consistent with the development standards and general plan. The exterior finishes, colors, materials, and exterior features must be found to be appropriate. It was not mentioned on the previous slides, but the existing garage siding that's there, it would identically match on the way up, and the roof material would also identically match the primary residence. Conditions of approval necessary for this project. The project would comply with required findings as approved. There are no special conditions necessary of the project. As proposed, it is entirely compliant with the code. And with that, the recommendation from city staff is that the ARC adopt the resolution to approve the architectural review permit and conditions of approval. That concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is also online.
Are there any questions for Matthew?
I do have one question now. I think you said it, but I just wanted clarification. The design of the proposed roof is to the pitch and design is to match the single family dwelling that's on the site.
Correct.
Correct.
So for ADUs, we require by city code that any proposed ADU have a matching roof to the primary residence. And so if there's any deviation from that, it goes to ARC. In this case, to have the second story on top of the garage and have the roof pitch, it would exceed the height limit there, which is also why we're here.
Thank you.
Am I reading this, the comments correct, that C and D are lower units and A is an upper unit? So is there none that split?
That is correct.
So that
They are
those-
distinct
those
units.
Bottom ones are fully obscured views now,
As proposed,
as
correct.
proposed. Okay, thank you.
I just want to ask a follow-up question to the first question there. So it's not asking for a variance. It's within the height limit. It just exceeds the non-ARC review for an ADU.
Correct. So yeah, with the roof pitch, if it needs to go higher, they can go to ARC, and that height maximum is 25 feet. There is no ADU that can be approved that is above 25 feet. It's just in the case that it's above 20 feet, in which it's coming over here.
Matthew, this rule about ADUs having a matching roof line, is that etched in stone, or is that something that ARC can negotiate or talk about?
If there's a deviation in the roof pitch, it goes through ARC.
Okay, and that's why we're here.
Not
Not why we're here, but it's one of the things we could be here for. Yeah.
It's within our purview.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, the ARC can approve a design that has a non-consistent roof pit.
Any other questions?
With the, if you were to go level out from the, say, the rail and the balcony on the lower units in the property behind there on Spencer Street, how much below the roof or roof pitch or the edge of the eaves would that be from, with this as designed or as presented?
I am gonna pull up the photo one more time so we can take a closer look.
So this picture is taken from the view of the upper apartment or the lower apartment?
This is the lower
Lower
apartment.
apartment. And then I don't know if it's just the way that it's skewed, but, or is that the shape here that it has? Because it looks like the front edge of that is higher than the back edge near this here. Is that just a optical illusion, or is that how they're actually presented with the roof line of the proposed ADU?
It's just the perspective.
It's just perspective. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't have a photo from the deck line. I
Oh.
have it from just
All right.
human
That's
holding
like,
it. This is not raised above the head.
did you take this picture or?
I did.
Okay, so this is you're
This
from your
is
head, basically.
from me.
Okay.
I am gonna ask, there's a tree that looks like it's floating. Why I just was curious. That's why I was curious if you
What is
took it
that?
also, or.
That's amazing.
There's a blue roof
Is
underneath it.
there a blue roof?
Yeah,
I can't-
Yeah. It's the,
Oh, I
it's
see it.
Bay
I see it.
School.
That's actually the top of the school
Yeah, yeah.
top of the-
there. It's
Yeah.
almost
Hard to
perfectly
see, but yeah.
matching.
It's the same color as the ocean.
Magic
Yeah.
tree.
Did not realize that.
Well, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to
Photoshopped
point
or
out that
something. No, seriously,
that blue roof is not
Yeah.
ocean view. That's blue roof.
Correct.
So,
Roof,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not Ocean, exactly. No, so I mean, that is pertinent.
yeah,
So-
absolutely. That's a percentage of view
Yeah.
for sure.
So you take,
Go ahead.
The roof line would almost match up with the roof of the building.
so you're standing basically in the middle of the balcony, directly adjacent to the divider between the two balconies. Did you take any pictures from the outer edges of both balconies?
I strolled over, but I don't have any other photos from those other sides, which may be a lesson learned.
So this is the unit on the left.
This is yes, this is on the left. I will say from the other one, it is very similar.
Very similar. Okay. Got it.
It extends over to the
Yeah.
right.
The map, the horizontal orange fencing is the bottom of the roof line, correct? And then it goes up to the top, the pitches of the angle, and then the top is the top of the roof line, correct? So the horizontal. Okay, thank
Look
you.
at that.
That's not.
That's not-
the flag.
That doesn't match
match
the flag
the
or
flag,
the
so-
story poles.
The story pole goes to that point here
Uh,
and to this point here. It may be a,
If we're flat.
That's a
If it were
perspective.
flat.
yeah, this
Yes,
might be a,
This represents if it did not have the pitched roof.
right,
So-
and this is
Oh,
Oh, very nice.
wow.
pitch roof.
Can you dial that back down? Okay. So that. Who came up with that proposal? Was that just something that staff did or?
I anticipated the question.
Um, it's not really flat though, is it? It's just not as okay,
It was me zooming in and clicking on what I perceive to be the point of the
Base.
the pole here.
got it. Okay. Did you want to see that again, Shelley? So he wants to see the flat roof again. She wants to, there you go. And now is that flat or that's just a more shallow pitch?
This is to the top of the metal poles that are installed here, so it is to the,
I guess what my question is, it's not a flat roof. It is a flat roof.
Yeah, it should
But he's trying
represent
to
the
shoot the
flat
flat.
roof. He's basically mapped out
I
the
see.
flagging that's around the eave line.
Got it.
So it's just from this perspective, it
Which way would the flat roof pitch? Backwards? away from the ocean? I
We
guess it
do-
would have to be away from the ocean.
We do not have a proposal for a flat roof.
right? Okay,
Yeah, it's important to note before we get too far down this road, we may want to hear from the applicant.
Absolutely.
all right. Any other questions for Matthew? All right, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
I don't currently see the applicant online.
Okay,
Do we have anyone online?
There is one attendee online, but I believe they are the owner of the previous project.
Okay. Can we,
um,
we'll just ask if the applicant is online, if you can please raise your hand.
Sure. If the applicant for 639 Belden Street is online, please raise your hand and we can remind the public how to participate.
Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Go, a secure service that connects with you with no lag time. Join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone. Use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isurgemonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864 toll free, then enter the webinar ID. For the ARC, the webinar ID is 161-914-9563. If prompted for a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions for using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name typed into Zoom. Thank you.
okay, Levi, can we go into public comments and then circle back to the applicant if they
Yeah, we
choose to
can.
do that?
It's all
Okay.
part of the public hearing. So
So we would like to open it up for public comments. I see some people in the audience. If you'd like to come up to the lectern and I'd like to keep it short to maybe like 3 minutes if possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that microphone on? Just make sure it is. There we go.
Wait, sorry. Is that better? No?
I just want to make sure
Is
that
this on?
it's
Yeah.
recorded. Yeah, okay, there you go. Just kind of like, yeah, there you go.
Softly. I'm Christine Gaither. I own the property directly behind Belden Street. And I guess to keep it really short, I would hope that you would consider changing that roof line to the lower, not approve the 22-foot height roof, but maybe compromise with the flat roof that Matthew was showing. You saw from the pictures, for those 2 units, that beautiful ocean view would be completely gone with the addition of that ADU. So I'm just hoping that you'll consider that flat roof.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello, I am also a tenant from 638 Spencer Street for over 8 years. In fact, I just recently vacated Unit
Can you state your
C.
name, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is Chandra Seeley. And so I actually was living in Unit C, came home and saw the story polls 2 weeks ago, freaked out and rented the upstairs. We live on our decks. It's how our house rolls. And so we would definitely respectfully request that a flatter pitched roof be considered. Because it will make the difference. It will make the difference in people staying. It'll make the difference in what you can collect for rent. And it would keep both properties happy. They get an ADU, they get a rental, and we get to keep ours. Furthermore, I do have a question. In just sitting here now, the Clerestory versus opaque, those windows, the Clerestory ones that place them higher up on the wall, will actually look straight onto through the slats of the deck of both of those apartments as I'm sitting here watching the presentation. So I just love to see some clarification on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments online?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay. Applicant,
I still do not see the applicant on.
okay. I guess we're gonna have to close public comment, which would include the applicant, correct? Okay, so we're gonna close public comment on this and we're gonna open it up for a committee.
If they happen to rejoin at some point, you can always reopen.
Then we
it.
can reopen public comment. Okay, we're gonna open it up for committee comments. And other questions, like I just want to maybe answer the last public comment was, are those clear story windows going to be opaque?
The yes, in the plans, they would all be opaque. Yes,
I would imagine that the ADU would want privacy as well.
in addition, so our rules regarding windows for ADUs is if you're within 10 feet of the property line, the windows need to be opaque. At one point in time, it was both opaque and inoperable, which the building department felt was just a wall at that point. So in terms of access and safety for bedrooms, they could open as proposed. The windows on the sides of the bedrooms, the full-size ones, would be opaque and operable. The clerestory ones in the back would be inoperable, but the bathroom one would be able to open. So the clerestory windows need to be, oh, they're 6 feet above the floor height of that level. However, they are underneath the roof.
Well, I would hate to see the views from those two lower units, be obliterated by this hipped roof that has to match the existing dwelling. So I'd like to, as a committee, explore some alternatives to, going up that high with it and see if there is a compromise that could be had.
I do have just one quick procedural question. If we were to go that route and recommend that with the applicant not being here, how would that work? Would we have to continue? Would we deny it for redesign? I'm just, if the applicant's not here, we're not sure he's going to.
Yeah, the committee has the discretion to do as they wish in regards to that. That's kind of an interesting point on this project. As Matthew described earlier, the reason that they're before the ARC this evening is because they exceed the 20 feet height limit that allows them ministerial approval. It would be my assumption that if you went with a flat roof design on this, they would then be compliant with the 20-foot height. So it seems that this committee could either, if they wanted to go that direction, they could approve with the condition that the structure not exceed the 20-foot height. Alternatively, they could deny the project and then the applicant would still be able to come forward with a design that meets the 20-foot height limit and not have to come back to the committee. Well, that's not true because then they would not be compliant with the roof pitch. So they would need an approval from this committee to deviate from the roof pitch requirement.
You said our two options are to approve or decline. Why can't we continue?
Yeah,
You can
there is a-
continue. It's just, we just don't, without the applicant being here, we don't know that that would actually serve any purpose. We don't know if they're open to a redesign essentially with them not
Yes.
agreeing to tonight. So,
But they could come
But
back.
that is an
at the
option of-
Continued meeting, they could come back with their original design if
Or-
they were not open to it.
if they
Or the
chose-
other-
if they chose to attend that meeting. Yeah.
One would assume they would, but yeah.
Or the other option, that if we were to deny it, they could appeal it to the planning commission within the next 10 days. The decision, is that correct?
That's correct. But again, if the committee was comfortable with, if they're comfortable with a deviation from the roof pitch requirement, that would be staff's recommendation for a path just to save everyone time and fees.
that sounds reasonable as far as I'm concerned is, staying within the 20 feet, not, obviously, we want to have, the reason we have rules like matching roof lines is so we don't have, just outlandish looking ADUs that don't match the look and feel of the original house. But I think lowering the roof height on that a couple of feet isn't going to, and it's almost impossible to see from the street anyway. I think, in my opinion, I think that would solve this problem and let them move forward with the project. And then hopefully the tenants behind and the property owner behind will be satisfied with that solution as well.
Would it be helpful to see the story pole image from the street to get a better idea of what that flat roof impact may be?
You mean just show the pictures again or
Yeah.
redo the story poles?
Just show the pictures. Matthew will pull those up.
Yes, and the context is helpful too, I think.
Oh,
of other-
that,
other
yeah.
buildings and-
Can you show the one from the street, Matthew? So that bottom netting would be where the flat roof is,
Right.
and that netting going across at an angle is the pitch.
Yeah.
So it gives
And
you
it-
some idea of what view would be maintained.
And if you could go back one, I think, or forward one, so we hardly even see, well, you'd still see a little bit from the street, but that doesn't matters. But, I was up there today and there's a lot of multi-dwelling units and two-story units on this block, for sure. So, anyway, that would satisfy me going forward. And that's all I have to say about it.
I'd actually like to see the views from the decks.
So have them redo the story poles?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I
Oh,
I feel like
just right
this
now. Okay,
picture
got
is
it.
taken from the very middle of the deck. And if you went to the outer edges of the deck, I wonder if that view would not be as impacted. And I don't know, yes or no, but I imagine it would not be as impacted if we went to the outer edges of both decks. And that's just, I'd just like to see that view before we make a decision and ask them to put a flat roof on a building. So I guess that's where I was going with the continuance, that I
Sure.
would prefer a continuance rather than.
Yeah, and that's definitely an option, and staff can coordinate with getting those photos if that's the wish of the committee.
Are we allowed to ask for ARC field trip? Like, I know we used to do that on projects and we used to actually get on decks and see the views.
That could be coordinated.
I'll concur with committee member Polly's comments on that.
Yeah, me too. I'm all, it's a big decision. It's going to affect a lot of people's lives. And so if we can just get as much information as possible to help us make a good decision.
I guess before saying that staff could coordinate that, I guess we would, with the property owner being here, it may be a good question run by them as well.
I would imagine you guys would be okay with us coming and taking some pictures. Okay, or coming by and actually taking a look. I went by there today. and I-
Going on the decks of
Yeah.
the lower decks. Are the occupants of both the lower units here?
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Can I ask staff one more question? When I was on site, the buildings seem very close together. Is the apartment building a compliant setback? Is it also a 5-foot setback?
I did not do research into the neighboring property.
Any other comments or? So the motion would be to continue or to table? What's the proper word?
Continue.
Continue, okay.
I move that we,
Before we could move, or just want to, if we're going to go a date certain, can we just
Yeah, so because we have to have a certain date.
have to have a certain date, or we have to renotice the item if it's continued to a date uncertain? And then we're also approaching the holiday season, so quorum starts to become challenging. So just that's something we want to consider.
So
And Levi, can you clarify one more time? Why were you in favor, and I'm not saying you were taking a strong position, why were you suggesting a denial or an approval instead of a continuance? You mentioned fees or something like that, or?
Oh, no, that was subject to approving a project that we thought maybe would be appealed. And again, don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. It's just rather than, I think it's a better option to continue the item than to deny it, knowing that the applicant has the option to appeal it. They
Got it.
do,
Okay.
but it does just take up more time and then costs everyone more money.
So who's in charge of the dates? Is that you, Erica? What would be the next date?
The next ARC meeting is on December 6th.
Okay.
And we do have items slated for that meeting, so it is anticipated to happen.
And I will be
It
here
would be
that,
the only
that
item.
day. I believe
December 6th.
it's a Wednesday.
I'll be here too.
Can you make that?
Um,
Because we need a quorum. If we can't, I mean, if we schedule it, okay, so we've
So
got a quorum.
We can
on
always
the
continue
6th.
it to a date certain, and then if for whatever reason we don't have we don't have a quorum, we can then renotice if we absolutely need
Are
to.
both residents like an hour before? So we start these meetings at 3 o'clock on that day. Will the apartments be available?
That would be convenient. What are the letters of the two lower? The upper is A and the lower is C and D?
Yeah.
What happened to B?
Elsewhere.
Okay, it's in the back. Okay, got it. All right, so C and D, so if we happen to come by and just bring C or D, that might be okay. Okay, because I thought about doing that today, but I wasn't sure who. was
Staff
gonna
will,
go.
and staff will coordinate with the property owner and
Okay.
the tenants.
We
that-
don't want just dropping in on.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
it'll have to be a noticed field trip for Brown Act issues, so
Okay.
we'll have to notice it
We
accordingly.
can't just go on
within
our
the-
own. We have to be together.
So that is another option. It's usually a little bit more intrusive for the property owner and the tenants to have
Yeah.
multiple visits, but that is an option and that would not require
Brown Act stuff.
noticing and Brown Act stuff,
Yeah.
but I'll leave that up to the committee.
Okay, well, we can discuss that as with staff later. We don't have to do it now.
Absolutely.
So do you want to make a motion?
I move that we move the application for architectural review permit ARP -23-0056 to continue on the ARC scheduled meeting on December 6th with an opportunity to view on-site a field trip to the properties to make an assessment for ourselves on the historic goals or the impact of the views from the property behind this property.
I'll second that. Is that clear, Erica? Sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So that motion carries. It's appealable, I guess.
It's actually not, since
It's
no
not, because
decision
it's
was
a
made.
continuance. Okay, so, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, and we will take a look
See
for
you in a couple of
ourselves.
weeks.
See you in a couple of weeks. All right. Any committee member comments?
It's not required for us to see in person, obviously.
No, no.
Just pictures.
Yeah.
I'll try.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, we used to do it and it was always optional. The field trips were on the Monday before the Wednesday
Yeah.
meeting.
Last, yeah. There's something there.
Yeah, get in the van number 9.
Do we have to take the van?
No, I don't think so. That's not really like, we stopped doing it because of COVID protocols.
Yeah.
All right, with that, any other staff?
Yep, just quickly, just city council follow-up. We had a few historic rezonings that were passed and adopted along with the cannabis business zoning overlay that was approved by on first reading by council as presented. So there will be 4 overlay districts throughout the city that will allow cannabis retail businesses. And then there was also a temporary moratorium placed on Mills Act contracts for the city. So if you're not familiar with those are historic preservation incentive program. So just temporary moratorium approved by council to further study the fiscal impact of that program. And then last night at Planning Commission, they made a decision on the 95 Prescott project that this committee approved with a reduced amount of signage that was appealed to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved a alternative proposal. First, they continued it with direction to propose a different amount of signage that was compliant with the square footage allowed, which was the 265 square feet. Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, so the applicant came back with a proposal that was consistent with that, and it was approved by the Planning Commission. And then we do have items tentatively scheduled for the December 6th ARC meeting. And then we also just continue this item. So we'll have items on that agenda, and staff will coordinate to ensure a quorum prior to that meeting.
Thank you, Levi.
Can I ask you a question on one of those? Is the Mills Act moratorium related to the situation in Carmel? Like, it seems strange that we're both exploring the Mills Act at the same time, both cities.
Purely coincidence. It was the city of Monterey has experienced a pretty high number of Mills Act contracts, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's what the program was intended for.
Mhm.
It's just that the program and its original adoption was I think in the 90s. So it's just been some time since that program's been evaluated, and the fiscal impact of the program since its adoption has been evaluated. I don't think there's any intention to do away with the program, possibly restructuring based on what that fiscal analysis comes back with, but just something the city wanted to study.
Okay.
It's also timely this time of year. So the way Mills Act contracts work, they're approved and then they don't go into effect until the next calendar year based on the tax assessment. So this time of year is usually where we see a major lull in contracts being applied for, because they wouldn't be processed before the beginning of the year. So it actually is kind of an opportune time to study it.
Thank you, Levi. Any other comments? Thank you, everybody, for coming, and that will adjourn tonight's meeting at 4:53.